So, welcome back to our explorations of the Seder Night and unraveling the mystery of the Haggadah Shel Pesach. And today we're continuing with understanding the fundamental obligations of Seder Night by analyzing the Rambam's 7th chapter of Hilchot Chametz U'Matzah in the Mishnah Torah. And so last time we talked about the mitzvah of Zechira, of becoming mindful of the events that happened on the Seder Night and how they influence our experience of freedom even today. And today I'd like to move on with you to the next halacha here, and this would actually be paragraph 3 in chapter 7 of Hilchot Chametz U'Matzah. And the Rambam tells us another fascinating feature of the Seder Night. He says as follows: V'tzarich la'asot shinui b'layla hazeh. We're obligated to create differentiation, differences on this night. Kedei sheyiru habanim v'yishalu v'yamru ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halilot. So that the children who are at your Seder will see these differences, these strange things that you're doing, and they'll ask, and they'll say, hey, why is tonight different than all other nights? Why are we doing things differently? Does that sound familiar? We say those exact words in the Seder. What is different about tonight? What differentiates tonight from all other nights? Ad sheyashiv lahem, to the point that you'll be able to respond back to them and say, v'yomar lahem kach v'kach era v'kach v'kach haya. That these are the events which took place, these are the things which happened. So we have this amazing concept that we have to do things differently in order to evoke curiosity. And this is a fascinating idea, because rather than just sitting everyone down and saying, okay guys, listen, there's going to be a lecture tonight about freedom. Everyone has to attend, and everyone shows up at the table, and the father, the leader of the ceremony, stands up and starts talking about freedom. Instead, we actually want to poke their curiosity. Right? And that's because when we ask a question, we're much more receptive to hearing the answer. It becomes something that we are invested in. We want to know, we want to solve, we want to fill the void that we've recognized. We need to make sense of the world around us. And so the Rambam says that the things that we do differently on this night don't even have to be particular prescribed activities. Although, as we'll see, we actually do certain things in the Seder itself. According to how the Rambam presents this, and he's basing this off the Talmud, all you have to do is evoke curiosity. However you accomplish it is up to you. So take a look at what he says. V'ketzad mishaneh, how should we differentiate? What should we do differently on this night? Mechalek lehem klayot ve'egozim. Just start handing out nuts, walnuts, candies to all the kids. Ve'okrim hashulchan milifneihem kodem she'achlu. Or just pick up the table and walk out of the room and see what happens. See if you can evoke some sort of reaction from them. V'chotvin matzah zeh miyad zeh, or just start grabbing matzah out of people's hands. Just turn over to Aunt Sally and grab those matzahs out of her hand while she's, completely surprised what's going on. V'chayotza b'dvar melu, or anything along these lines. So this is a fascinating idea, because there doesn't have to be rhyme or reason behind the differences that you're doing, behind the strange behavior that you're exhibiting. The point is only to draw the attention of those who are at the Seder, to evoke curiosity from the participants. And this is a critical part of the freedom process, because if we're not thinking and wondering and pondering about what lies beyond what already makes sense to us, what are the edges of my understanding, and how can I expand those limits? How can I broaden and fill in those gaps? If I'm not thinking about those questions, I'm not truly free, right? And this was an attitude that our founding father, Avraham Avinu, manifested. So as we know, growing up as a child in an entirely idolatrous society, he began to question. And he was always wondering and curious, where did the world come from? What is the fundamental force which is powering all of being? And he never stopped asking those questions, even though he lived in a society that was entirely bent on crushing individuality and curiosity. And so here we actually try to create curiosity. And this is maybe the origin of that ridiculous joke that, Jews always answer one question with another question. Because we're a people of questions. Questions lead to freedom. Questions lead us to freedom. Every great discovery of the modern era was arrived at by questioning our assumptions. And the way that we elicit curiosity and asking questions is by abnormalities, noticing that something is different on this night. And so what we need to do is create that difference. But now says the Rambam something absolutely astonishing. Because until now he had told us that you're supposed to evoke this curiosity from the other people at the table, your children. But what if you don't have children at the table? Says the Rambam, Ein lo ben, if a person doesn't have a child, ishto shalto, then his wife, his spouse, should ask the questions. Ein lo isha, what if you don't have a wife at the table? Then shoalin zeh et zeh, ask one another, ask your friends. But what if you're by yourself? What if there's no one else at your Seder? There were people last year, and hopefully this will be a Pesach where we all get to celebrate together in Jerusalem at the temple. But there were people last year, 2020, who spent their entire Pesach Seder by themselves, Rachmana litzlan. So what were they meant to do? What did they do? In lieu of another person to spend the Seder with, what are we supposed to do about evoking curiosity? Says the Rambam something absolutely incredible. Hayal levado, what if a person is by themselves? Shoel la'atzmo, ma nishtana halayla hazeh. They have to ask themselves. Ask yourself, what's different about tonight? You have to evoke your own curiosity. Now, isn't that astounding? I know the answer to my own question, don't I? I'm going to, stand in front of a mirror and say, so Chaim, what's different about tonight? Great question, Chaim. It's because we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and then God took us out with a mighty hand, now stretch out. Come on. Who are we fooling over here? But the truth is, whenever something is vital to our identity, whenever something is essential to who we are, we always talk to ourselves. We might be embarrassed to admit it in public, but we always have that quiet little narrative going on in my head. Chaim, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Am I really going to take this job? Am I really going to take the next step? Am I ready for this relationship? Who are you talking to when you ask yourself those questions, for God's sake? You're you. If you don't know the answer to your question, because V'avraya, you're asking yourself the question, then why are you expecting an answer? Who are you talking to already? Don't you think that if you knew the answer to your own question already, you wouldn't have to ask it? And so here becomes an amazing, truly life-changing idea that the Seder Shel Pesach is supposed to be accomplishing. And that's this idea that language itself, the activity of speaking out ideas, is itself transformative. And this is an idea that I think in literary jargon is called performative language. Language which evokes a response, evokes action, or creates change. And this idea that the Seder Shel Pesach is about using speech to transform who we are, to become different types of people, requires us that in a moment of grappling with freedom, we need to turn inwards, ask ourselves the questions of what makes tonight special, what makes tonight different, why am I sitting here thousands of years later, reading the same texts, living and reliving through the same experiences, trying to get in touch with what it would be like to become free today from slavery. I'm doing that tonight because I recognize that it's through language, as I articulate my inner self, as I bring into concretization my consciousness, my thoughts, my ideas, and I manifest them in the world outside, they take on substance. They become something real, and they become tangible and something that they can then be ingested back into myself, rather than remaining as some sort of abstract, brain dust, which is here today, gone tomorrow, flies to the front of our mind for a split second, and goes back into the, into the lower chambers. It becomes something real, concrete, that I will then have to deal with. So yes, says the Rambam, speak to yourself. Ask yourself these questions. If you have no one else at the Seder who's accessible, no one else who's really listening, then you turn inward and ask yourself, what makes tonight so different? What makes tonight so special? We'll wrap up here for today. See you all next time. I'm Chaim Davies, and this is the Chaim Davies Show.